Now for part 2, market analytics. One of my business partners, Shane Kunkel, gave a great presentation a couple of months ago during the 61st Annual American Hop Growers Convention. I'm sure many of you attended that event. Just a quick show of hands, how many people have already seen Shane's presentation either in person at the HGA or on the Lupulin Exchange blog? Anybody? Okay, not too many. So I'm going to show you a quick preview.
So my name's Shane Kunkel. I'd like to welcome you to the Lupulin Exchange community. We're really excited to be at the 2017 American Hop Convention and get to know all the people in this room. This graph we're looking at right now actually tells the story of the 2015 crop year for all varieties really nicely. If the exchange was born, then John and I are the parents. I'm the technical side, he's the brewing side. And it can be like a married couple at times. However, if you only remember one thing from my presentation today, all the charts, all the graphs you're going to see, remember this next slide. If we're a married couple, John is the woman and I'm the man. It's been a great synergy of industry knowledge and software development. We even have a 6 Sigma black belt on staff. I don't actually know what that means, but my best translation is badass data scientist. This data is representative of the entire industry. It's not specific to one broker or grower. We get data from all over. The line charts there are showing us the worst case scenario for pricing. People continue to list Cascade for sale in the $6 to $7 range, and it's only currently selling for $5 per pound. If you want to check on what a variety's been selling for recently on this exchange, simply log in and find a matching listing. The low, high, and average, weighted average price are in the lower corner here. Brewer survey data contains good and bad news. Like we knew, the left graph shows us that brewers use more Cascade than any other variety in my presentation today. The right graph shows us they plan to increase their usage next year. However, the middle graph shows us what we were fearing, is that more than 3 times the brewers expect to be selling than buying Cascade on the exchange next year. It's our top volume hop on the exchange. It's also #1 for hop alerts. Last month, we sent out 130,000 hop alerts. We can see that the price is holding up better than 56%, which we like. On both graphs, we see Amarillo is falling faster than average. And we think, again, my guess is that Amarillo is suffering again because of irrational prices to start the year.
All right, Shane did a great job presenting this at the annual Hop Growers Convention, and I know some of you are going to want to watch the whole thing, so you can either go directly to this URL right here, or you can also get there from blog.lupulinexchange.com. I don't want to waste your time by repeating Shane's presentation, which you can just watch online, and obviously you all have greater agronomic issues to deal with, so and you don't have the luxury of just planting whatever varieties you want. So I think it makes more sense today to talk about some of the big picture issues in the current hop market and then dive into a couple of varieties that most of you are currently growing. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard that craft beer is experiencing a slowdown. Well, so what, you say? New breweries are still popping up every day, right? The slowdown itself is not all that alarming. Really, it's healthy. No industry should expect double-digit growth every year forever, right? But I'll tell you what is alarming. This slowdown has come much faster than anybody expected. Back in September, I wrote about the perfect storm that was brewing on a post in a post on the Lupulin Exchange blog. Unlike the storm of 08-09, we're now facing huge surpluses of hops rather than panic due to lack of availability. I mentioned 3 contributing factors in that blog post, and they're all worth repeating here today. Well, now we have better insight on the first question I asked. Unfortunately, the slowdown appears to be bigger and faster than anyone expected, which is very bad news for the hop industry. That means brewers contracted for hops based on growth forecasts that will not be achieved. Now let's take a look at the second contributing factor. Did dealers and growers plant aggressively? Well, according to the HGA, U.S. hop acreage has increased 72% over the last 5 years. Now, it's important to remember that yields are down because there's been a dramatic shift from alpha to aroma production in recent years. If that statement doesn't make sense to you, go watch those webinars I mentioned earlier. Craft beer production in barrels increased roughly 99% over that same 5-year period. Meanwhile, total U.S. beer production decreased nearly 4%. So think about that. In other words, a whole lot more hops were planted to produce fewer barrels of beer. Now that craft beer production is greater than 25 million barrels, the real concern is what happens if the 2017 growth rate is as bad as some folks are forecasting. I've heard estimates of 5%, 3%, and even some predictions that we should expect a net decrease in craft beer barrels during 2017. Then there's a third, very unfortunate factor that's part of the problem, even though it shouldn't be. Whether driven by greed or residual fear from those brewers who've been around long enough to remember the shortage many of us faced in 08-09, it's clear that some brewers have done some intentional over-contracting. Many of those brewers are now stuck with contracted hops that they simply don't need, and many of those are multi-year contracts. Here's the typical life cycle of a crop year on the Lupulin exchange. This chart shows all varieties lumped together for the entire 2015 crop. We're looking at average trading price, so that includes trades at $35 a pound as well as trades at $4 a pound. If we start on the left side of the chart, you've got your hop harvest in September. Then there's not much activity as dealers are just beginning to pelletize and brewers are still working off the previous crop year. Then prices, you see the prices start out high and basically fall as the crop year ages. Listings accelerate and seem to peak about the time of the following crop year is harvested. Normally, I'd expect to see the volume of listings, so the dark green bars, decrease, especially as you make your way into another calendar year on the far right, but that doesn't seem to be what's happening. Purchases of crop year 15 are certainly tapering off now that we're in 2017, but the listings continue to pile up. Now let's shift gears and look at the most recent harvest, crop year 16. Do you notice any big differences here? If you remember on the last slide, the difference between pounds listed and pounds sold was minor for the first roughly 6 months of crop year 15. But here you can see that each month accumulates 20, 30, or even over 50,000 pounds of unsold listings. And here's something else troubling. It turns out there's still a fair amount of excess 2014 crop out there. Fewer than 10,000 pounds of it has sold in any of the last 9 months, but 20 to 40,000 pounds of crop year 14 has been listed each month during the same period. Okay, now let's drill into some of the numbers that Shane presented at the HGA for varieties that are relevant to you folks here in the Mid-Atlantic. So what's everybody growing? Well, Cascade, of course, and why wouldn't you? If you look at the HGA's 2016 stat report, you'll see that Cascade production is the highest out of all U.S. varieties. It's ubiquitous in the brewing industry, and it grows fairly well here in the Mid-Atlantic, so obviously it's a good choice for you folks to plant. So let's look at some of the reasons it didn't score well in Shane's presentation. Brewers continue to list large quantities of Cascade for prices above average trading price, and less than half of what's listed actually sells. Cascade's price drops faster than the average over the life cycle of the crop year. Now for some good news, which is probably already obvious to everybody here, brewers use more Cascade than any other hop variety. And more good news, our survey data shows that brewers plan to increase their usage of Cascade in the coming year. But unfortunately, the survey data also reveals that 3 times as many brewers expect to be selling rather than buying Cascade next year. And here's another cause for concern. Cascade acreage only increased 3% from 2014 to 15, but acreage increased sharply in 2016. We think that increase was too aggressive. Let's look at the same chart, but for another variety that might be important to some of you. Chinook's recent acreage increases have been substantially more conservative, and as you can see, it's an important variety for many brewers. And like Cascade, brewers tell us they expect to increase their usage of Chinook in the coming year. Overall, brewer contracts for Chinook appear to be well balanced, but there are more reports of long positions than short positions. Chinook's price is both higher and seems to have better stability over time versus Cascade. So which variety should you plant or should you avoid planting? Well, the regional hop industry is in its infancy, and you've got to focus on agronomic issues first and foremost. Grow varieties that can stand up to the local terroir, which, as you know, has increased disease and pest pressure. Focus on quality and the competitive advantages you have as a small grower. That's your niche. If you get those things right, you won't have to compete on price or be as concerned with what's going on in the overall market. And finally, I just want to mention some ways that the Lupulin Exchange is already helping small growers like you. Would you like to get your own hop web store set up in a few minutes? Lupulin Exchange truly handles everything for you. Like payment processing. The only thing you need is a standard US bank account. Buyers can pay by credit card directly from their bank account, and coming soon, Apple Pay. Sellers pay no fees of any kind. You list your hops for 10 bucks a pound, you get 10 bucks a pound. You can sleep well at night knowing your web store is running on a battle-tested platform that's processed over $12 million in transactions. From day one, your site will be optimized for mobile devices like you see here, hosted on world-class elastic infrastructure, and your data center is protected by military-grade security. We even make it easy for you to embed your listings anywhere on the internet, including your own website. And of course, we help you connect to the Lupulin Exchange community. Your listings appear directly on the exchange, which receives more than 1,000 visits from brewers every day. And every time you create a new listing, we send out thousands of hop alerts by email to brewers who've subscribed to notifications for listings that match the variety, crop year, type, and price range of your listing. Last month, we sent out 137,374 hop alerts. Who needs to waste money on sales and marketing when the Lupulin Exchange delivers your listings directly to buyers who've told us that they want exactly what you're selling? Our free back-end order fulfillment system, known as Trellis, lets all your employees see all of your company's orders in one spot. All they need is a web browser. Dealers and growers of all sizes are already using Trellis to fulfill hundreds of orders every single day. Everything needed to fulfill an order is right at your fingertips. Standard or LTL shipping information. We give you the internal fields invisible to the customer. We give you a customizable checklist system so all your employees can see where each order stands. There's a wall for employees to take notes and communicate. Fulfilling the order is super easy. You fill in the tracking info, click complete, and the customer instantly gets order status and tracking information both by email and in their online account. Proceeds of the sale get deposited into your bank account electronically. You never have to worry about getting paid or bother with chasing down unpaid invoices. So let us know how we can help you grow your business. Send us your feedback and questions, and be sure to subscribe to our blog and social media for the latest news and updates. Us brewers look forward to watching more of you Mid-Atlantic hop growers become part of the Lupulin Exchange community. I'd like to thank Dr. Janine Davis both for inviting me to speak and for organizing this conference. I'd like to thank Katie Currid for granting permission to use some of her beautiful photos, Hop Growers of America for putting together some excellent stats, and the many hardworking people either mentioned or pictured in my presentation, as well as Marty from B-Cord for recording all the presentations today, and most of all, everyone in this room for enduring 40 minutes of yours truly. Thanks a lot. Hope you guys have a great day. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have anyone using Lupulin Exchange that are interested in brewing, like more nutraceutical companies?
Yes. Yeah, I've seen some interesting names in our user list. I'm trying to think of a few. We've seen some from like Whole Foods has bought some hops. There's been some, I'm going to struggle to come up, but yeah, there's been some that jumped out at us that were like, wait, who's that and what are they doing with hops? There's been a few. Kombucha. Yeah, kombucha, there's been a bunch of those. Cider, obviously there's some dry hop cider. Yes, sir.
On that same note, what about like essential oils and things like that, like byproducts of hops?
Yeah, we've had a few requests to allow listing of extracts and whatnot, and so far we haven't done that because there hasn't been enough of a demand for it, but I think we eventually will end up doing that. Yes.
I saw there it listed the seller. I guess however that's listed in their company name. Does it have anything to do with where those hops are coming from?
Yeah, I mean, you can look in there and you can, if you want, one of the great things is like, so take like New York, for example, they have this farm bill and they have to purchase a certain amount of ingredients. So like a brewer in New York, they can go to the Lupulin Exchange and say, hey, only show me hops that were grown in New York. And you can do that same thing for Virginia. So if someone in Virginia says, hey, I want to brew with Virginia hops, they can search only Virginia listings and so on. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that you can do. Anybody else? All right. Well, thanks a lot. Hope you guys have a good one.
Right?
Thank you, John.